A hospital corridor, a desperate father, a little girl with weeks to live, and a janitor who'd been invisible to everyone until one man saw him. What Marcus Reed discovered about kindness wasn't just that it comes back, it's that sometimes it comes back carrying miracles. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Marcus Reed had always believed in hard work, not miracles. At 34, he'd built a successful physical therapy practice from nothing, raised his 8-year-old daughter Sienna alone after his wife died giving birth to her, and never once asked the universe for favors. But standing in Dr. Patel's office on a Tuesday afternoon in September, listening to words like renal failure and transplant list and 6 months, maybe less, Marcus found himself bargaining with a God he wasn't sure he believed in. "There has to be something we can do," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the terror clawing at his throat. Sienna sat beside him, small and pale, her dark curls pulled back in the purple scrunchie she wore every day because her mom had loved purple. She didn't understand everything the doctor was saying, but she understood enough. Marcus could see it in her eyes. Dr. Patel folded her hands on her desk. "We've put Sienna on the transplant list. You're not a match, as we discussed. Have you contacted other family members?" "There is no other family," Marcus said quietly. "My wife's parents died before Sienna was born. I'm an only child. My mother passed 2 years ago. There's no one." The doctor's expression softened. Friends, extended family, sometimes even distant relatives can be tested. Marcus thought of his small circle, his business partner, Jason, who had 2 kids of his own and was already helping with Sienna's medical bills, his neighbors, the elderly couple next door, the parents from Sienna's school who'd organized meal trains and fundraisers. Good people, all of them, but he couldn't ask them to give up a kidney. He couldn't. "I'll figure something out," Marcus said, standing. He took Sienna's hand. "Come on, baby girl, let's get you home." They walked through the hospital corridors in silence. Sienna had been here so many times in the past 3 months that she knew the route by heart. Past the cafeteria where the nice lady always slipped her extra cookies, past the children's ward with the bright murals, past the elevator banks where Marcus always pushed the button twice, a silly ritual that made Sienna smile. Today, nothing made her smile. "Daddy," she said softly as they waited for the elevator, "am I going to die?" Marcus's heart shattered. He knelt down, cupping her small face in his hands. "No, absolutely not. We're going to find you a kidney and you're going to be fine. Do you hear me? You're going to be fine." Sienna nodded, but her eyes were old, too old for 8. She'd lived with illness long enough to know that sometimes parents couldn't keep their promises. The elevator doors opened. Inside stood a man in janitor's coveralls, mopping the floor. He stepped back to let them in, his eyes downcast. Marcus barely registered him. His mind was spinning, calculating. How much money did he have saved? Could he hire a private firm to search for donors? Could he afford to advertise? How much time did they really have? The elevator descended. 1 floor. 2. Then it stopped. The lights flickered. The elevator lurched. Sienna gasped, grabbing Marcus's leg. The janitor steadied himself against the wall, his mop clattering to the floor. "It's okay," Marcus said automatically, though his pulse had quickened. "Just a power fluctuation. It'll start again." But it didn't. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The emergency phone on the wall crackled to life. "This is maintenance. We're aware of the situation. Power's out in this section. We're working on it. Should have you moving in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Trapped in an elevator with his terrified daughter and a stranger? Marcus looked down at Sienna. She was trembling. "Hey," he said gently, sitting down on the floor and pulling her into his lap. "Remember when we were stuck in traffic last summer for 2 hours and we sang every song we knew?" Sienna nodded against his chest. "Let's do that. What should we start with?" Before Sienna could answer, the janitor spoke. His voice was soft, accented, Eastern European, maybe? "May I tell her a story to help with the fear?" Marcus looked up, seeing the man properly for the first time. He was perhaps 50, with graying hair and tired eyes. There was kindness in his face, something gentle. "That's okay," the janitor said quickly, sensing Marcus's hesitation. "I understand. Stranger." But Sienna turned in Marcus's arms. "What kind of story?" The man smiled. "A true one, about a little girl and a magic garden." "Is it scary?" Sienna asked. "No, it's about hope." Marcus felt Sienna relax slightly. "Okay," she said. The janitor sat down against the opposite wall, his long legs folded. "When I was young, in my country, there was a girl who lived next door to me. Her name was Anya. She was very sick, like you. Her heart didn't work right. The doctors said there was no hope." Sienna listened, her breathing evening out. But Anya's grandmother had a garden, a small one, just outside their apartment. She grew tomatoes and herbs and one rosebush that never seemed to die even in winter. Anya would sit by the window and watch that garden every day. She couldn't go outside, too weak, but she watched. "Did she get better?" Sienna asked. The janitor nodded slowly. One spring, a new flower grew in that garden. No one had planted it. It just appeared. A strange, beautiful flower that Anya's grandmother had never seen before. She picked it, made a tea from its petals, and gave it to Anya to drink. And it healed her? No, but it gave her strength. Enough strength that when the doctors found a new treatment, her body could survive it. She lived, that girl. Last I heard, she had 3 children of her own. It was a simple story, maybe not even true, but Sienna's eyes had brightened slightly, and Marcus felt gratitude wash over him. "Thank you," he said to the janitor. "That was kind." The man shrugged. "Children shouldn't be afraid, not if we can help it." The elevator lurched back to life. The lights steadied. They began descending again. When the doors opened on the ground floor, maintenance was waiting with apologies. The janitor gathered his mop and bucket and disappeared down a corridor without another word. Marcus carried Sienna to the parking lot, her head heavy on his shoulder. That night, after Sienna fell asleep, Marcus sat at his kitchen table and did what he'd been avoiding. He Googled how to find a kidney donor. The results were overwhelming. Websites for transplant advocacy, forums full of desperate families, private companies charging thousands just to search their databases. His phone rang. Jason. "How'd it go today?" his business partner asked. "Not good. She needs a transplant. I'm not a match. I don't know what to do, Jason. I don't..." His voice broke. Hey man, we'll figure this out. I'll get tested tomorrow. Emily too. We'll get everyone at the practice tested. Someone will match." But Marcus knew the odds. Blood type, tissue compatibility, cross-match testing. The chances of a random person being a suitable donor were tiny. Still, he said, "Thank you. Really." Over the next 2 weeks, 17 people got tested. Marcus's business partner, the staff at the practice, 3 of Sienna's teachers, parents from her school, the couple next door, even the mailman who delivered to their house for 5 years. None of them were matches. Marcus stopped sleeping. He worked during the day, researched donor options at night, and spent every spare moment with Sienna. She was getting weaker. Her skin had a grayish tinge now. She couldn't make it through a full day of school without needing to rest. Dr. Patel suggested they consider the possibility of palliative care. Marcus refused to hear it. It was a Thursday afternoon when Marcus returned to the hospital for Sienna's weekly checkup. They were early, so he stopped in the cafeteria to get her a chocolate milk, one of the few things she still wanted to drink. The cafeteria was busy. Marcus stood in line, Sienna leaning against his side. That's when he saw him, the janitor from the elevator. He was sitting alone at a corner table, eating what looked like a packed lunch from a worn paper bag. Something made Marcus walk over. "Excuse me," he said. "I don't know if you remember us. From the elevator? A couple weeks ago?" The janitor looked up, and recognition flickered across his face. "The little girl, yes. How is she?" Marcus hesitated. "Not great, actually. She needs a kidney transplant. We're looking for a donor." He didn't know why he said it. The words just came out. Maybe because this man had been kind when kindness mattered. Maybe because Marcus was so tired he'd lost the filter that normally kept his desperation private. The janitor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What is her blood type?" O positive. I am O positive also. Marcus's heart skipped. Really? Many people are, the janitor said gently. But if you need someone tested, I can do this. I have insurance through the hospital. It would cost me nothing. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I offer. The janitor stood, his lunch half-eaten. My name is Pavel Kowalski. Tell me who to call. Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands, typing Dr. Patel's information into a text. Pavel took down the number. I will call this afternoon. It's probably nothing, but I can try. Thank you, Marcus managed. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. Pavel smiled. You let your daughter hear a story in an elevator. Small kindness for small kindness. He walked away before Marcus could respond. That night, Marcus didn't tell Sienna about Pavel. He didn't want to build up her hopes. The odds were still so slim. Blood type was just the first hurdle. But he let himself hope, just a little. 3 days later, Dr. Patel called. Marcus, she said, and her voice was strange. You need to come to my office. Is Sienna okay? Did something happen? Sienna's stable, but I have news. That man who got tested, Pavel Kowalski, he's a match. Marcus sat down hard. What? Not just blood type, tissue type, cross-match, everything. He's a near-perfect match. I've never seen compatibility this good between unrelated donors. It's extraordinary. Are you sure? I've triple-checked. Marcus, if he's willing to go through with it, we can schedule the surgery. Marcus called Pavel that night. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop near the hospital the next morning. Pavel arrived wearing the same worn jacket Marcus had seen him in at the hospital. He ordered black coffee and sat across from Marcus with quiet patience. I spoke with Dr. Patel, Marcus said. She said you're a match, a perfect match. Pavel nodded. Yes. I need to know if you understand what you'd be agreeing to. The surgery, the recovery time, the risks. You don't owe us anything. We're strangers. I am 53 years old, Pavel said calmly. I am healthy. I have 2 kidneys. I need only 1. Your daughter is 8. This is simple math. It's not simple. You could have complications, infection, blood clots. You'd miss weeks of work. I'd pay for everything, obviously. The surgery, your lost wages, anything you need. But I need to know you're choosing this freely, not because you feel obligated. Pavel took a sip of his coffee. May I tell you something about my life? Of course. I came to this country 16 years ago, from Poland. I was a teacher there, history. But my English was not so good, and my credentials didn't transfer. I took whatever work I could find. Janitor was what was available. I thought it would be temporary. It was not. He paused, his fingers wrapped around his coffee cap. For 16 years, I have been invisible. People look through me. They see the uniform, not the person. I clean their floors, empty their trash, and no one says good morning. No one asks my name. That's fine, it's work. But after a while, you forget what it feels like to matter. Pavel looked at Marcus directly. You saw me in that elevator. Your daughter talked to me like I was a person. You thanked me for a story. Such a small thing, but it reminded me that I'm still here, still capable of something more than mopping floors. Marcus's throat tightened. If I can give this little girl a chance to live, then my life means something again. You understand? This is not obligation. This is purpose. Pavel, Marcus said, his voice rough, if you do this, you won't be invisible to us ever. You'll be family. Pavel smiled. Then I'd do this. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In that time, Marcus learned Pavel's story. He lived alone in a small apartment across town. He'd been married once, but his wife had died of cancer 7 years ago. They'd never had children. He sent money to his sister in Poland every month. He read voraciously, history, philosophy, novels in both Polish and English. He played chess at the park on weekends. He was brilliant, kind, lonely. Marcus invited him to dinner, then another. Sienna, who'd been quiet and withdrawn for weeks, came alive around Pavel. He taught her Polish words, told her stories about medieval castles and ancient libraries, brought her a wooden puzzle box he'd made himself. "You made this?" Marcus asked, turning the intricate box in his hands. "Woodworking is my hobby," Pavel said. "I have a small workshop in my building's basement. Keeps my hands busy." "This is incredible. You could sell these." Pavel shrugged. "Maybe one day." The night before the surgery, Pavel came over for dinner. Sienna was too nervous to eat much, but she sat close to him on the couch afterward, her small hand in his large one. "Are you scared?" she asked quietly. "A little," Pavel admitted, "but I'm more excited than scared. You know why?" "Why?" "Because tomorrow, part of me becomes part of you. My kidney will live in your body. That means wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be with you. That's pretty special, yes?" Sienna nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you for saving me." Pavel pulled her into a gentle hug. "Thank you for seeing me." The surgery lasted 6 hours. Marcus paced the waiting room like a caged animal, unable to sit, unable to think. Jason stayed with him. So did Mrs. Chen from next door, and a handful of parents from Sienna's school. When Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in her scrubs, Marcus's heart stopped. "It went perfectly," she said, and Marcus's knees buckled. Jason caught him. "Both surgeries. Sienna's body accepted the kidney immediately. Pavel came through without complications. They're both in recovery. You can see Sienna in about an hour, Pavel in 2. Marcus visited Sienna first. She was pale, hooked up to machines, but her eyes opened when he took her hand. "Daddy?" she whispered. "It worked?" "It worked, baby girl. You're going to be okay." She smiled and drifted back to sleep. Marcus found Pavel's room 2 hours later. The older man was awake, groggy but alert. "How is she?" Pavel asked immediately. Marcus sat in the chair beside the bed. "Perfect. The kidney is working. You saved her life." Pavel closed his eyes briefly. "Good. I don't know how to thank you. I don't know if there are words big enough." "You already did. You saw me when I needed to be seen. Now we're even." But they weren't even. Marcus knew they'd never be even, and he was okay with that. Recovery was slow. Sienna bounced back faster than Pavel, the resilience of youth. She was home within a week, still weak but improving daily. Pavel's recovery took longer. The surgery had been hard on his body. He developed a minor infection that required extra antibiotics. He couldn't return to work for 6 weeks. Marcus visited every day, brought groceries, made sure Pavel had everything he needed, and when Pavel was well enough to leave his apartment, Marcus picked him up and brought him home. "You're staying in the guest room until you're fully healed," Marcus said firmly. "No arguments." Pavel argued anyway. "I can't impose. You're family now, remember? Family doesn't impose." So Pavel stayed, and something shifted in the Reed household. Sienna blossomed with Pavel there. He helped her with homework, taught her chess, told her endless stories. Marcus found himself looking forward to coming home, to the sound of Sienna's laughter echoing through the house, to Pavel's quiet presence in the kitchen making tea. One evening, 2 months after the surgery, Marcus came home to find Pavel and Sienna building something in the garage. A wooden dollhouse, intricate and beautiful. "This is amazing," Marcus said, crouching down to examine the tiny details. "Where did you learn to do this?" "My father was a carpenter. I watched him work when I was young. I always wanted to do the same, but I became a teacher instead. Now I have time." You have more than time. You have talent." An idea formed. Marcus chewed on it for a few days before bringing it up. "I've been thinking," he said one night after Sienna was in bed. "My practice has been growing. We've been talking about expanding, adding a retail section for therapy equipment and mobility aids, but I've been thinking, what if we added something else? Custom woodwork, adaptive furniture, things people with disabilities need but can't find. You could design them, build them. We'd provide the space and materials." Pavel stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. You'd be a partner, not an employee. Your skills, my business infrastructure. We could help a lot of people." "Pavel, I'm a janitor." "No, you're a craftsman, an artist, a man who saved my daughter's life, and you're my family. So what do you say?" Pavel's eyes filled with tears. "I say yes." 6 months later, Kowalski Adaptive Designs occupied a corner of Marcus's expanded practice. Pavel worked there 5 days a week, creating custom walkers, adaptive desks, mobility aids disguised as beautiful furniture. Word spread. Orders came in. Pavel hired an assistant, then 2. He wasn't invisible anymore. On the anniversary of the surgery, Marcus threw a party. Not a big one, just close friends, neighbors, people who'd been part of their journey. Sienna, now 9 and thriving, made a speech. "A year ago, I was dying," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I didn't think I'd see this day, but Pavel gave me his kidney. He gave me his time. He gave me his heart, even though we were strangers. He saved me, and he became my family." She walked over to Pavel and handed him something. A wooden box, smaller than the one he'd given her, but carefully crafted. "I made it myself," she said proudly. "You taught me how. It's not as good as yours, but—" Pavel opened the box. Inside was a small framed photo. Marcus, Sienna, and Pavel laughing in the kitchen. Below the photo, Sienna had carved 3 words: "Our perfect family." Pavel couldn't speak. He pulled Sienna into a hug, and Marcus joined them, and for a long moment the 3 of them stood there, wrapped in each other and in gratitude and in love that had grown from the smallest seed of kindness. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Marcus and Pavel sat on the back porch. The summer air was warm, crickets singing in the darkness. "I've been thinking about that story you told," Marcus said, "in the elevator, about the girl in the magic garden. What about it? Was it true?" Pavel smiled. "The girl was real, Anya. She did live next door. But the magic flower? No, there was no magic flower. Just medicine and luck and a strong will to live." "Then why tell Sienna that story?" "Because sometimes children need to believe in magic. It gives them hope when reality is too hard." Marcus nodded slowly. "I think maybe there was magic, though. Different than the story, but magic all the same." "What kind?" "The kind where a desperate father meets a kind stranger in an elevator, where that stranger turns out to be a perfect match, where a little girl gets to live because someone she barely knew decided she mattered more than his fear." Pavel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Maybe you're right. Maybe kindness is its own kind of magic." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. Inside, they could hear Sienna getting ready for bed, singing off-key, full of life. "You know what the doctors told me?" Marcus said. "That the chances of Pavel being a compatible donor were about 1 in 100,000. Those odds, 1 in 100,000. And you were there, in that elevator, at that exact moment, right when we needed you most." "Coincidence," Pavel said, but he was smiling. "I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I think the universe puts people in our path for a reason. I think my daughter needed saving, and you needed purpose. And somehow, impossibly, perfectly, we found each other." Pavel stood, stretching his back. "I should go to bed. Early morning tomorrow. 3 custom orders to finish." "Pavel," Marcus said, and the older man turned. "Thank you. For everything. For the kidney, yes, but for more than that. For being here. For being family. For showing Sienna and me what real kindness looks like. "You showed me first," Pavel said softly. "Remember that." 2 years passed. Sienna turned 11, healthy and strong and full of dreams about becoming a doctor. Pavel's business thrived. He moved out of his small apartment and into a house 3 blocks from Marcus in Siena. He met someone, a librarian named Grace, and brought her to Sunday dinners where she fit seamlessly into their strange, beautiful family. Marcus expanded his practice again, hiring more therapists, helping more patients. But the most important thing he did was start a program, the Invisible Heroes Initiative. It identified essential workers, janitors, cafeteria staff, maintenance workers, and offered them free training in new skills: woodworking, physical therapy assistants, administrative work, whatever they wanted to learn. Pavel ran the woodworking classes himself. "This is amazing," Grace said one evening, touring the workshop where a dozen students were learning to build adaptive furniture. "You've changed so many lives." "One person changed mine," Marcus said, watching Pavel demonstrate a joinery technique to a young woman who'd been cleaning offices for 15 years and always dreamed of making furniture. "I'm just paying it forward." On Sienna's 12th birthday, she made a wish before blowing out the candles. "What'd you wish for?" Pavel asked. "Can't tell you. Won't come true." But later, when she and Marcus were alone, she told him, "I wished that everyone could have what we have. Someone who sees them, someone who saves them, someone who stays." Marcus pulled her close. "That's a good wish, baby girl. Do you think it'll come true?" "I think," Marcus said slowly, "that if everyone tried to see people the way Pavel saw us, and we saw him, maybe it would. One elevator ride at a time. One moment of kindness at a time. One stranger becoming family at a time." Sienna nodded against his chest. "I'm going to try. Every day, I'm going to try to see people." "I know you will. That's the gift Pavel gave us, not just the kidney. The reminder that everyone has value. Everyone matters. Everyone deserves to be seen." Years later, when Sienna graduated from medical school, top of her class, Pavel and Marcus sat together in the audience, cheering louder than anyone. In her speech, Sienna talked about the importance of seeing patients as whole people, not just diagnoses. About treating janitors and CEOs with the same respect. About remembering that the person emptying your trash might be the person who saves your life. After the ceremony, Pavel hugged her tight. "Your mother would be so proud," he said. "Both my parents are," Sienna said, looking at Marcus and Pavel together. "All 3 of them." Because that's what Pavel had become. Not a replacement for the mother Sienna had never known, but something equally precious. An addition. A gift. A third parent who'd chosen them as much as they'd chosen him. The story could end there, with Sienna's success and Pavel's happiness and Marcus's gratitude. But the real ending came years later when Sienna opened her own practice, renal specialists and transplant services. And in the waiting room, prominently displayed, was a plaque in honor of Pavel Kowalski, who taught us that kindness doesn't just change one life, it changes every life it touches, rippling outward like light in darkness. May we all be brave enough to see each other and kind enough to save each other, one small moment at a time. Below it, a photo. Marcus, Sienna, and Pavel in an elevator. Someone had taken it years ago during a routine hospital visit. They were laughing at something. Pavel's hand was on Sienna's shoulder. Marcus's arm was around Pavel. 3 people who'd been strangers, who'd become saviors, who'd become family. Because sometimes the universe doesn't give you what you pray for. Sometimes it gives you something better. Sometimes it gives you an elevator that breaks down at exactly the right moment. A janitor who turns out to be a perfect match. A little girl who learns to see beyond uniforms and titles. A father who learns that miracles aren't about divine intervention. They're about human connection. They're about choosing to stop and help when everyone else walks by. They're about offering a kidney to a stranger's child because you understand what it means to matter. They're about building a family not from blood, but from kindness. And that, Marcus understood Mao, was the most powerful magic of all. Not the magic of fairy tales or impossible coincidences, but the magic of deciding that someone else's life matters as much as your own. The magic of seeing the invisible. The magic of showing up for someone when they need you most. Pavel had saved Sienna's life with his kidney, but he'd saved Marcus's life too, reminded him that the world still had good people in it, that strangers could become family, that hope was always possible, even in the darkest moments. So Marcus made a promise to pay it forward every single day, to see people, really see them, to ask their names, to say thank you, to remember that everyone is fighting a battle, carrying a burden, hoping to matter. And when his granddaughter, Sienna's daughter, asked him years later to tell her the story of how great-uncle Pavel became part of their family, Marcus sat her down and started the way all the best stories start. Once upon a time, in a broken elevator, a little girl met a janitor who taught us all what it means to be human. This is how one act of kindness saved 3 lives and rippled outward to touch hundreds more. This is how we learned that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing each other, again and again, in every small moment that matters. And in a modest house 3 blocks away, Pavel sat in his workshop, building a cradle for that same granddaughter, his hands still steady, his heart still full, his life still meaningful, because one desperate father in a hospital cafeteria had seen him not as a janitor, but as a person, as someone who mattered, as someone who could save the world. If this story reminded you that kindness has power, that strangers can become family, and that we all have the ability to save each other if we just choose to see, share it with someone who needs that reminder today. Because somewhere, right now, someone is invisible and waiting to be seen. Someone is desperate and waiting to be saved. And you might be exactly who they need. Subscribe for more stories that prove love and kindness can change everything. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one choice, one person brave enough to say, "I see you and you matter."